With that, I would like to go to our next guest. It's hard to even call him a guest. You know him very well. My brother from another mother, Noah Khrachvik. How are you doing, brother?
Good. I'm good. A little tired. It's getting late for me. How are you today, brother? I've been listening in backstage here. Good stuff. You're not wrong in fighting the global financial parasite. Palestine is fighting for all of us, and frankly, we're falling behind in this fight, brothers
Mm.
and sisters. I think it's time we set aside all that pettiness and bickering and childishness that's been rampant on the left for way too long because things are getting serious. It's time for us to organize right now, and it's time for us to educate ourselves right now because we need to get in this fight. Uh, no one is better situated to take down the ruling class that lives here in our country than the American working class is.
Beautifully
But
said, brother. And with that, I'd like to plug for those that haven't already, make sure to sign up to the Educate Against Genocide class. You can find it at midwesternmarks.com. And it's you can join for $10. You can donate more if you want, but it's a very interesting space. We're going to have tomorrow Dan Cohen talking to us about his experiences and travels to Gaza. So make sure to hop on that. But Noah, I wanted to bring you on to discuss a couple things. First off is Venezuela. After a popular vote, they were able to incorporate Guyana Essequibo as its 24th state, a region that was a part of Venezuela before it was, basically illegally or imperialistically given to British Guyana. And this is the new map of Venezuela now that it has incorporated its rightful 24th state. I wanted to ask you, considering the interests of U.S. imperialism and ExxonMobil and the rich crude oil reserves in the region, which were discovered in 2015, do you think it is likely that forceful confrontation will be propped up by by the Exxon-controlled Guyana government in the interest of U.S. imperialism?
yeah, I was just talking to RT about this. I I don't think so because if we think about it, who are the forces propping up Exxon, right? Why is Exxon even there? Why now? Why is this push happening now? Right? And it's because they discovered oil in the region, right? But what are the institutions these oil cartels use to carry out their will? It's the American government and military. It is the EU soft power, things like this, right? And these are all already occupied, losing a proxy war in Ukraine and attempting to exterminate the Palestinian people. They don't have much sort of propaganda goodwill left to them as they're just abysmally losing the PR war in Palestine. And militarily, they're overextended already. Opening up a third imperialist theater right now is just terrible tactics militarily, you know?
Yeah, brother, I couldn't agree more with you. And it just so happens that this year is the 200th anniversary of the Monroe Doctrine. And I wanted to play for everyone a clip from Southcom's Laura Richardson shamelessly reiterating Monroe Doctrine talking points with regard to the future that she would like to see out of the region and its collaboration with U.S. imperialism. And I think it reminds me every time I see stuff like this of a famous quote from Jose Marti, specifically his famous essay Nuestra América, Our America, where he says that los árboles se han de poner en fila para que no pase el gigante de las siete leguas. The trees ought to put themselves together, ought to align themselves so that the giant of the seven leagues don't pass. You know, the only way to defeat American imperialism, the Monroe Doctrine, the doctrine that likes to that think of South America, Central America, the Caribbean as simply the backyard of U.S. imperialism, or in Biden's new formulation, the front yard. It's no longer the backyard, but now it's the front yard. The only way to defeat that is through Latin American, Pan American unity against imperialism, and for us, the revolutionary agent within the belly of the beast, as Marti used to call it, to fight against an imperialist government that not only does not represent us, but that actively harms us. But no, I wanted to play this video, get your thoughts on it, especially in conjunction with how it is that U.S. imperialism, ExxonMobil are seeing the addition, the incorporation of the Essequibo to Venezuelan territory, a longtime enemy of U.S. imperialism, because any government that wants sovereignty, that wants its resources to work for their people, that wants to oppose the influence of U.S. imperialism and American and other foreign multinationals coming in and destroying their people, keeping them poor while they get filthy rich. Any country that does that becomes the enemy of the U.S. empire. But let's listen into this real quick. I'll get your thoughts and reflect on it in conjunction with how you think that the U.S. empire and ExxonMobil via the government of Guyana, which it basically owns, is going to act in the region following the incorporation of the Essequibo as the 24th state.
Let's do it.
That was discovered off the shores of Guyana. That's the fastest growing economy projected for the next 5 years at 25% GDP growth. Heavy crude in Venezuela. So with the potential, I'll go to back to the resources of the region. Over 50% of the soybean in the globe is from this region. Over 30% of the sugar, beef, corn is coming from this region. How do we help this region reach a potential to feed and fuel the world? But when you talk about these resources that are there, and we ask ourselves why the investment in all of the critical infrastructure by our strategic competitor, the People's Republic of China. So why is that? Well, the resources are there. This megaport that the PRC is building right now north of Lima, Peru, will take off 15 days to get food. They get 36% of their food from this region. It'll take 15 days off of that transit time, from 35 days down to 20. They won't have to go to Mexico or go to San Diego before they go to China. Now it'll be just a direct shot. Why is that? That's the PRC's plan, the gateway to Asia. But where are we coming up with the alternative solution for all of the critical infrastructure? Why are we not competing on the contracts and the tenders that these countries put out? Why is it only the PRC that's doing that? How are we mobilizing Team USA to come forward and to compete for these contracts? And I would say with the administration's announcement of the APEP, American Partnership for Economic Prosperity, where 12 Latin American leaders were brought to the White House on the 3rd of November. And so, billions of dollars being channeled through the Inter-American Development Bank and the Developmental Finance Corporation into the hemisphere, specifically for critical infrastructure, is huge. It's a start. But we got to do more. We got to double down, and we got to see the importance of this regional hemispheric security doctrine that we need to put our foot on the gas and double down, and it's a call to action.
So as the comrades say, they're not even trying to hide it and pretend like it's defense. It's clear, profit driven. It's clearly rooted in political economy and imperialism. But Noah, your thoughts, especially in conjunction with how you think the U.S. empire is going to act now after the incorporation of Essequibo as the 24th state of Venezuela.
Yeah, I think she said it all, right? She said it all. Their interest is in preventing the Chinese getting food more cheaply into Asia, in preventing Chinese trade with this entire region. And why do you think they were in Ukraine putting that forward, right? What did they blow up? They blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, Russian energy getting all through Europe. Why? And they say the same thing, right? They say, well, now they'll have to explore the rich natural gas reserves coming from the US, right? Always, 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 always about the bottom line. It is. And where we're talking about Essequibo, we're talking about a nation which is in danger of debt distress to the IMF, right? And they've been writing reports about this every year for years. And when they find that oil in 2015, I think, those reports change. They're all saying, oh, we project record GDP growth, right? All based on this oil production. All of it based on this oil production. It's always about the money. They don't care about the Guyanese people. I mean, it was British Guyana, right? They don't care about the people who were torn from the other people of the region just by the British arbitrarily drawing a line. And so I think what we're going to see, and we're already beginning to see it, is just a propaganda spin with little behind it. You know how many times I've heard Venezuelan imperialism today, which is maybe the silliest phrase I've heard in a long time. Venezuelan imperialism? What on earth are you talking about? They're going to try to flip it as if, one, the relationship in question is not Exxon Mobil and the super majors and on one side and Venezuela on the other. They're going to try to flip that to say it's actually Guyana and Venezuela. That's the first thing they'll do. The second is that they're going to frame Venezuela as doing this out of nowhere. They're the evil ones going for the oil, right? But just follow the money. Who was paying for this legal battle at the ICJ, right? It was Exxon Mobil. I mean, come on, they've got Ali just bent over a barrel here. It's sad.
You're absolutely right. And, we have a common sense saying here in the U.S., which is follow the money. Most Americans understand that you follow the money, you get at the root of why X, Y, or Z is being done. And one of the largest travesties, as you mentioned, is the amount of people that speak about it in terms of imperialism from the so-called left. This is why here at the Midwestern Marx Institute, as an educational institute, we always promote that it's not enough for us to have right opinions on certain events. It's not enough to be correct and to have the truth occasionally. We have to develop the outlook that allows us to have the truth consistently. The outlook, the dialectical materialist outlook, whose whole basis is our ability to reproduce the concrete concretely in our minds. And if you want to avoid being the sort of person that looks back at your political involvement and says, well, I was right on the question of China, but I was wrong on the question of Ukraine, and then I was right on the question of Palestine, but I was wrong on the question of Venezuela. If you want to avoid that inconsistency, if you want your judgment to be knowledge and not just right opinions, again, this important distinction brought forth already by the ancient Greeks, you need to develop the dialectical materialist outlook. So, brother, I wanted to, unless you have a comment on that. Go ahead.
Real quick, brother. This is so unbelievably important that we aren't stuck in the land of belief where we're just believing this person or that person. The reason we can get this right, and I'm not speaking of just us at the Institute, but all of us, the reason we can get this right is because we understand what imperialism is, how it comes into being, and the difference between an outcome of imperialism, such as the invasion of Iraq, and something else altogether, such as the reincorporation of Venezuelan territory back into Venezuela. Right?
Or the Russian special, or the Russian special military operations, right?
Precisely. Because if you're just believing, you're just letting them misinform you on what imperialism even is. Because what is imperialism? Right? It is capitalism advancing to its monopoly stage. All the other stuff is because of this. That is the core of it.
Absolutely, with the predominance of finance capital and it's globalization beyond what anything Lenin could have even imagined, especially after the Second World War and the development of what I would consider a form of neo-imperialism, a higher stage of imperialism itself, with the IMF, the World Bank, and other such institutions. Comrade Ross says, follow the money. And if you follow the money for the Institute, you usually end up at Comrade Ross. He's the sugar daddy of the Institute, our Soros. That's we're obviously joking. Ross is a great comrade, and thank you so much for the contribution. And again, the Institute is a grassroots funded institute, so these donations are tremendously appreciated. Noah, I wanted to go to our next segment. So we know that there have been not just U.S. but Western boots on the ground in Ukraine for a while, basically since the beginning of the special military operations. But now that it's coming to an end, that everyone agrees unanimously, even a large chunk of the Ukrainian leadership has admitted it, that the war is over, that Russia has won. There's, and it's ended up in the same way that we predicted it was going to end up, and with tremendous suffering, a lot of deaths, and Russia eventually winning. But the U.S. has always been clear that it wants to fight till the last Ukrainian. But now here's something of a whole different nature. Here's Joe Biden raising the possibility of American troops fighting Russian troops in the case that Russia supposedly invades a NATO state, which I don't think that's likely at all. Russia is not an imperialist power invading other countries. But let's listen in, and I want to get your thoughts after on the possibilities that you see of something like this occurring, and how likely is it to intensify the already contradictory and revolutionarily pregnant state that we're in the U.S. as working people. But let's listen into Biden and then give me your thoughts.
Well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory. Then we'll have something that we don't seek and that we don't have today. American troops fighting Russian troops. American troops fighting Russian troops if he moves into other parts of NATO. Well, we've committed as a NATO.
So that is very scary discourse that we haven't heard yet, but
yeah, they're floating the idea, right? What this seems designed to me to do is gauge the reaction of people. And you know what? There is no better way to get anyone who didn't already side against our ruling class here against them, and to start hating the Nazi Banderite scum they have used as their puppets in Ukraine right now, than to put American troops there. Everybody will be like, not our sons and daughters, not our fathers and mothers, not our brothers and sisters. No, thank you. I mean, and that's not, some sort of chauvinistic thing. It's just, these are the people we know. It's easy for them to fool people, or easier for them to fool people when it's all over there. They can say, oh, they're not really Nazis. And it's just people you'll never meet that are in abstract to you dying in service of our prophets. But when it's the people on your block, when it's the people that raised you or that you raised, that's a whole nother bag of bananas, my friend. Whole nother bag of bananas.
Love it. The famous Khrachvikian dictum of bag of bananas. Thank you so much for coming on, brother. Those are all the questions I had prepared for you today. Anything you'd like to plug before you depart?
Man, I feel like a real guest. I'm getting asked questions. I get my picture big. That usually don't happen. No, I'm good. Really,
We're filming you.
If you want to see my recent interviews on RT about Venezuela, it's really me doing it because Eddie's been so busy. He's kind of our Venezuela expert. He's training for really, really big wrestling events. But check those out on our team. We can't put them up on our YouTube because we'll get demonetized. We also have another, I guess, semester of basics of Marxism beginning soon. There is one organization who's going to be sending a lot of students. So we're sort of coordinating with them. As soon as that's ironed out 100%, we'll announce the dates. We'll open up for signups and all that good stuff. But other than that, yeah, I'm going to listen to this as I go to bed. So have a great rest of your night, brother. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm like talking to him like I'm getting off the phone. Have a great rest of your show, brother. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you, comrade. We'll be talking to you tomorrow. That was the legendary Noah Khrachvik.